You're a dwarf. You're in space. You're a space dwarf on a dwarf space station. And you're ready to get those dwarven hands on some sweet, sweet minerals. But first, you have to choose your class. One of 4 different dwarf options are at your fingertips. The engineer, the gunner, the scout, and the driller. And then, once you've chosen, your journey begins, and you dive deep into the core of a bug-infested alien world for all those shiny gems, veins, and stones. By way of a gigantic drill, you're taken into the depths of the planet, and you and 3 of your dwarven compatriots are dropped off into one of its many biomes. You find yourself in a procedurally generated tunnels, chasms, and caverns of the planet, with walls littered with glimmering riches that are just begging to be pickaxed and collected. Your dwarven bosses back home have given you an objective, and a bonus objective. Find 250 of something called Morkite, and if you have the time while you're out, why not pick up 15 fossils as well? As you explore the depths, you have to dig through voxel-based barriers and bridge large gaps at other natural puzzles, using your various abilities to accomplish these goals. And on your way to completing these objectives, you'll also come across various other non-critical materials. Some just give you your missing health back, but others can be used as upgrade currency back at the Space Dwarf Space Station base station. In the meantime, remember the part about this planet being bug infested? Well, it's true. Throughout your stay in the dankest of dank holes that only a dwarf could love, you'll be assaulted by waves of insectoid enemies who want nothing more than to send you back into space empty-handed. But against all those odds, against the natural barriers that the terrain offer, and the unnatural armies of massive bugs, you come out of the planet's filthiest of holes with your dwarven space pockets filled with gold, morkite, and other made-up space minerals. And that is Deep Rock Galactic. Other than simply telling you exactly what you'll be doing from one moment to another in the game, I didn't know of any other way to explain what exactly this game was. It has elements of a number of genres. It's a class-based first-person shooter at its core, I guess, but that doesn't do it justice. There are wave defense aspects to it, I guess, but where other games would make that their focus, this game uses it as a flourish or a barrier, a simple obstacle. There's material gathering that plays the focus, I suppose, but it's not an open game like Minecraft necessarily. Every aspect of Deep Rock Galactic does its part to build a strange, endearing, charismatic experience that, in my opinion, isn't getting enough attention. And so, I was hoping to do my small part to put together a video that could do just that, but first I had to explain what the game was. And while I'm still struggling to find the right buzzwords, or to put this game into a genre, or find a game that does exactly what this one does, with this exact combination of genres that Deep Rock Galactic combines, I failed at all of that, but I hope that this puts us on a road to understanding the world that you'll find yourself in within this game. Deep Rock Galactic has a few pillars of design that contribute to the success that the developers have found in keeping the gameplay loop engaging for long periods of time, despite what you're essentially doing is mining, killing bugs, upgrading, and repeating over and over again. And I think the most important of these pillars, and the largest component to the success, is the class design. This is perhaps my favorite part of the game, and I find myself getting aggravated regularly when developers are either too ignorant or too afraid to give classes more than just different ways to kill an enemy. Sure, diversity in the way you murder is nice, but what happened to utility? Has the era of mega balance negated the interesting tools and functions outside of the murder economy? I love World of Warcraft, and I have for a long time, but when the game first started, there's no arguing that there was a much larger focus on utility in their class design. Certain classes were nearly useless in the most difficult combat scenarios, but because they had a few really important utility skills that didn't directly feed into killing enemies, healing their party, or absorbing damage, they were still desired in groups. They could do some of those things too, but not well enough to coast on, and so they were there because they could do one specific thing outside of those boxes that facilitated other people in their group to accomplish their goals. They were truly support classes that set slightly askew from the typical healer, tank, and damage dealer roles, while still sitting just enough on the edge to still fit in within the Holy Trinity system. I think that's a concept that's been lost in a lot of modern game design. And in a lot of cases, I think the closest thing you get to utilitarian class design now is whether or not a class is a deployable shield that you can all huddle under together. Not only does this lessen the impact of a class system in general, often leading to homogenized classes that are all just different flavors of the same thing, but it also neuters just how much synergy you can impose on team play between these classes. So while you may be in a group, you're largely just activating abilities and going through your rotations that are meant to kill things individually without any thought of what your fellow players are doing. A lack of synergy between interesting utility neuters a game's ability to provide interesting team play, and I think the best multiplayer games in the modern era still have at least remnants of those utilitarian designs. Don't get me wrong, Deep Rock Galactic does have different flavors of murder. The Gunner's minigun destroys waves of bugs, the Scout can take out enemies at long ranges with its rifle, the Engineer can deploy machine gun turrets and defend their positions, and the Driller, well, the Driller drills good, I guess. But it also provides you with tools that have nothing to do with fighting off the waves of bugs that work against you and also force you to speed up and keep your momentum moving throughout a level. The Gunner is perhaps the best evidence of my point, however. Sure, he does have a powerful minigun that can shred through legions of the bugs with ease, and his secondary is a powerful revolver that's great at mercy killing the stragglers. But in addition to his standard kit designed for destruction, and of course the previously hinted at shield generator, because we can't go without that, they also have the zipline gun. Additionally, the Gunner gets a few tools that every class has, and while that list includes a grenade, of course, it also includes an item called the laser pointer, which when pulled out highlights your friends through walls and allows you to mark items for them to see with waypoints, a microcosm of the duality of the class design in general. But back to the zipline gun. In order to fully understand the impact that this gun has, I should probably explain what a level in Deep Rock Galactic usually looks like. First of all, because the game is utilizing voxel technology, everything is destructible. Every wall, floor, and ceiling can be dug through until your heart's content. Every vein you see to mine is broken apart manually, piece by piece, with your pickaxe. Additionally, each level is procedurally generated, so you'll never get the same exact layout twice. That means when you come to a new cavern filled with goodies to mine, it'll present new terrain challenges for you to overcome. You'll be presented with minerals and ores that are extremely difficult to reach without a whole lot of digging, or without the right tools. One of the fossils you need to complete the mission may be across a large gap that is impossible to simply jump across. That's where the zipline gun comes in. So you pull out your tool and you find a nice place on the other side of the canyon that sits between you and that delicious fossil, and you fire. A line is then strung across the gap and now stretches between your position and where you aimed it. And now, not only can you, but your entire team can travel back and forth across this line like a dwarven conveyor belt, setting up a trolley system to get to and from that fossil and whatever else might be on the other side of the now conquered gap. What if the ore's high up on the cavern wall, much too high for your short dwarven legs? And perhaps one of the best examples of class synergy in the game, an engineer can use his platform gun to fire foam platforms onto walls just below that coveted vein of gold that you want. And then the scout can then combo with that new platform by using his personal grappling hook to lift himself up and onto the new platform, thus giving himself a safe place to mine that hard to reach material. It's this sort of class system that doesn't rely on simply reflavoring a player's ability to kill the enemies that really sells Deep Rock Galactic's moment-to-moment gameplay. And while the fault in this system is that it does make solo play either too difficult or too boring when you don't have friends, when you are playing with your friends, or even just random players, the game becomes an experience that shouldn't be missed by players nor developers alike. The second pillar that builds Deep Rock Galactic's foundation is its atmosphere. And the core of that atmosphere is not in the caves that you'll spend most of your time in, but instead in the hub that you'll spend only scarce moments in between your mining forays. Deep Rock Galactic forgoes a typical menu system for an interactive environment. The space station, even in its earliest iterations, has always had that feeling of home that very few hubs in video games do. Where other games simply give you the tools that you need to get ready for your next excursion, Deep Rock Galactic does that and more with its space stations. It sets the tone for the rest of the game, in fact, and it makes you feel like the dwarf that you're playing, even though you never knew you needed to feel like a dwarf before. It keeps you moving in the way that you can interact with the environment. In its latest patch, as of this recording, the med bay was added to the space station, and currently in its current iteration, the only thing the med bay does is give you a specific room to respawn when you die. You could always respawn, obviously, but now, instead of just spawning in your dormitory, you'll now spawn in the med bay, and it's great for some reason. When a player joins your game, it isn't just a notification on your screen. One of the 4 dormitories that was once vacant now has their name in bright green letters above the door. That's right, Sloppy Nips 420 is here. He's now taken up residence in one of your station's dorms and exits his room ready to get dirty. The entire station is littered with kickable barrels that when you kick the barrel, that are only there for launching into holes in other places that they shouldn't be, your manager voices his concern over your vandalism. And in some of the most recent updates, a bar where you can get either a buff or a buzz on now exists. A barrel kicking game where you can get rid of some of that pent up kicking energy have all been added on top of the museum where you can go see your achievements in statue form. All of that on top of the computer screens that replace your typical menus. At these computers, you can then change your appearance, upgrade your gear, trade your resources, and more. It's all there. All of these things combined give the space station the character required to make it feel like more than just a waiting room or a lobby. It's a place that you enjoy being. You find that you might select your next level, but instead of jumping into it, you'll meander around and dance in front of the jukebox for a while before you board the drill for your next excursion. You might get a little too wasted and pass out having to use the new med bay. You might get a high score on the barrel kicking game, and then you remember, oh yeah, there's actually a really great and weird mining wave defense game that's waiting for me on the other side of the massive drill vehicle that's the centerpiece for the entire area. The tone set in your space station also leaks into the regular gameplay as well, as you're able to hit a button and have your character then spout out a catchphrase that only a dwarf could love. Chanting rock and stone to the bone over and over again after a successful foray is a regular occurrence and it's mandatory. It doesn't matter if your fellow party members are level 2 or level 200, they will usually join in this largely meaningless custom that continues to establish and solidify the character that the game offers. So you board your drill and you chant your favorite mining slogans at one another and you launch to your next level. You get your goods, you come back, you buy a new weapon or an upgrade. You talk to your friends about trading classes because you really want to shoot those zip lines. You get your alcoholic buff, you dance to the jukebox for a bit, and then you go back out there and do it all over again. And every second of it's fun and enjoyable and dynamic, and despite the fact that it's the same loop over and over again, with slight variations in equipment and level design, it's fun every single time. We spoke a lot about level design back when we touched on class design, and it's perhaps because of level design that the classes can shine and vice versa. So it's no surprise that I think the third pillar of Deep Rock Galactic's experience is the design of the levels that you'll be mining in throughout your experience, which is a foreign concept when it comes to games that rely heavily on procedurally generated environments. It doesn't rely on tile sets, and instead the network of tight caves, large open caverns, treacherous drops, and everything else in between rely on a strong baseline code to make sure that you never run into situations where you reach a dead end that isn't supposed to be there, or you never get stuck on a glitch in the algorithm. But it's also incredibly necessary for the game's levels to have the unpredictable nature that only true procedural generation can offer, because without it, or even with a lesser version of it, the experience would fall apart. The game would quickly fall face first into the boring side of repetition, if not for the diversity that it offers in its levels. Even a tile set system would not be good enough. But the level structure itself is not the whole story when it comes to level design, because the meta gameplay that the environment gives to you is not limited to whether or not there is a chasm here or a tight corridor there. Perhaps the biggest part of the environmental design and the effect it has on gameplay experience overall is lighting, or perhaps the lack thereof. Deep Rock Galactic offers something that I like to call the economy of lighting, because I'm a pretentious douchebag. Unaffected by the hands of dwarves, the levels of DRG are dark. There's some cursory lighting effects, but they're largely ineffectual when it comes to offering guiding light to your journey. The strange fauna in these caves often glows beautiful hues of orange, purples, and blues in the darkness, but they don't cast the light that you'll need to spot the items that you're going to want to mine in each cavern. So instead, every class is given flares that they can throw at will. They have 3 flare slots that recharge over time, allowing you to consistently throw out these temporary lighting sources as needed. You can upgrade the flare ability on a class-by-class basis, and these are the foundation of the economy of lighting. Every class has them, and every class can make them last slightly longer or recharge slightly faster given they put enough resources in to upgrade them. They are extremely important on your journey, and you'll need them because yes, you have a flashlight, but it only lights the area right in front of your face up, and often you'll find yourself in massive cavernous areas trying to spot slight glimmers in the darkness. You will need flares, making Deep Rock Galactic one of the few games to make lighting a character in their game effectively, and even more rare that a game that does it in this sort of genre, a genre that doesn't usually rely on tension to drive the experience forward. If that wasn't enough, you also have the Scout's flare gun. This tool fires a much more substantial flare that can stick onto surfaces, and it lights a much larger area up than your standard flare and also lasts longer. So if the Scout's mobility wasn't enough of a reason to pick the class, then its ability to really make the experience of mining much more comfortable for everyone on their team with a massive effect on the lighting metagame, surprising to have that phrase come out of my mouth, makes them that much more attractive of an option. What on the surface level seems boring, a flare gun isn't exactly a flashy concept, actually impacts the game experience on a much deeper level. The lighting in combination with a level system that is perhaps one of the only games on the market that actually utilizes procedurally generated levels in ways that rival the best roguelikes in making it more than just a gimmick but instead a necessity. The level designs are near perfect in my opinion, and work in concert with the class design so seamlessly that it feels natural immediately. After one game you realize the importance of every class and how it's needed to conquer a level. Except for the driller. That class is useless, and I will always stand by that. But then, after all that's said, after all that's done, you're back on your space station. You're getting reprimanded by management for kicking barrels. You're upgrading your platform gun to hold more platforms. You're dancing to the awful attempt at jazz that the jukebox has to offer. Maybe you're getting a wee bit crunk at the bar. And then you're ready to do it all again. Because with a lot of levity in the world that it represents to you, and a lot of creativity in the class design that fosters team play in much more interesting ways than most games, and a whole lot of satisfying mining action, Deep Rock Galactic does something that, even after writing and recording this entire script for this video, I'm still not sure I did it justice. In truth, if you separate the parts of this whole, the game does nothing special. What it does do is combine a few different concepts well, and ties them all together with impressive game design. It brings you into a world that you never knew you wanted to be a part of, and it sells it to you with excellent presentation. And I hope that at least a few people can see this documentation of Deep Rock Galactic's quirky vision, and they'll pick up the game and find themselves immersed in the simple brilliance of launching platforms, creating zip lines, and drilling tunnels, and become the best Space Dwarf miners that they can be. Thank you everyone for coming and watching. If you've gotten this far, I appreciate you listening to me rant on about a video game that I like. I have been Mojii. If you like what you saw, hit the like button, and I guess I'll see you guys on the other side.